Joining us now is Andrew Rasiulis, retired official of the Department of National Defense. Mr. Rasiulis, welcome. What do you make of Trump's calls today on NATO allies? Do you think it could make any difference on Russia's stance at this point?
Well, I don't think it'll even get there because it's a very weak statement. It carries a very large if, and the if is all European countries stop importing Russian oil. Now, that means chiefly Hungary, Slovakia, and Turkey, which import vast amounts of Russian oil. Their economies are dependent on cheap Russian oil. To now expect that they will do Trump's bidding and stop with the sort of underlying understanding that the Americans will then put some undefined sanctions on top of all the other sanctions that they put on Russia and somehow bring the war to an end, I think this is a very illusory statement by the president. I don't think there's much to it.
What about China, who he directly called out? What sort of impact could tariffs have there?
Well, exactly. He did on India, all right? He did on India, and it had no effect. The Indians have said, forget it, we're going to continue to buy Russian oil despite the tariffs imposed on them by the United States. On China, it's a very different degree. The Chinese import the most of Russian oil, and the Americans depend very much on Chinese trade bilaterally. So if they impose tariffs on China for goods entering the United States, this will have a significant impact on the American economy and American consumers. So Trump has never actually followed through on this. He's been saying that this has been going for weeks now, but he's pulled back. So because that is impractical. So basically, there are very strict limits as to what the United States and Europeans or Canadians can do to actually affect the Russian economy.
In terms of that meeting of G7 finance ministers, what kind of economic pressures could the G7 put on Russia to ramp up the pressure?
Again, not much. They're talking about various assets being, Russian frozen assets being, the money's taken from that, used to finance the Ukrainian war effort. Fine, you can do that. Ukraine will get more money. Great, they can buy more weapons. But what's the bottom line to all this? The Russians are winning the war on the ground and in the air, and the only way that the Europeans, the Ukrainians, Canadians, Americans are trying to pressure the Russians to stop, never mind lose, stop, is economics. And on that one, that's a tough road for them to actually succeed in pushing the Russians to where they want them to be. The Russians have the full support of China, India as well. They have multiple workarounds in place. So I think this is a bit, if I might say, a desperate attempt by the West to pressure the Russians to come to a ceasefire and stop on the road to defeating Ukraine.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for your time. Great chatting with you today.
You're very welcome.
That is Andrew Rasiulis, retired official of the Department of National Defense.